Every year in Uganda, we celebrate or commemorate the Ugandan Martyrs. These are 45 Ugandans who were killed by a king or the Kabaka of Buganda between 1885 and 1886. But who were these Uganda Martyrs? Were they actually killed because of their faith, or was it politics? Was it something else other than religion? It becomes a bit controversial when we are discussing history. My name is Sheila Kawamara Mishambi, and I am the director and founder of Tembuzi Culture Fun Park. And today I want to actually discuss the issue of the Ugandan Martyrs. It is something that is very close to me because I commemorate the Ugandan Martyrs as well. As a Catholic, I grew up making pilgrims to Namugongo, and I still do, because I believe, according to my faith as a Catholic, 22 Ugandan Catholic martyrs were killed in Namugongo, and 23 Protestant martyrs were also burnt in Namugongo. But then, as a historian or a scholar of history, when I was at university, we were told actually the Ugandan martyrs were rebels against Buganda Kingdom. And I recall one of the students, who was a Catholic nun, storming out of the lecture hall saying she cannot allow the Ugandan martyrs to be desecrated and to be said that they were rebels and not actually martyrs. So this is a very interesting phenomenon, and I think as Africans or people that are very close to the Ugandan martyrs, we need to understand what was going on in Buganda at that time. The story of Uganda Martyrs actually goes back to the time when Stanley, one of the early explorers, came to the court of Buganda and met with Kabaka Mutesa I. At the time Stanley came to Buganda, Kabaka Mutesa was facing a very critical stage in the kingdom of Buganda. Kabaka Mutesa had welcomed the Muslim traders to his kingdom. They had taught him, the Muslim traders actually had come during the time of Kabaka Suna, the father of Kabaka Mutesa. So when Mutesa took over the kingdom, he actually converted and even began preaching Islam in Buganda. It was the official religion. So Kabaka Mutesa became an imam, but unfortunately he was not circumcised, because according to the Buganda culture, a king cannot shed his own blood. So the Kabaka was not circumcised. Now the Muslims, those from the coast, simply because they possibly wanted to do trade with Buganda, they accepted the Kabaka as an imam. He had a mosque very close to his palace. But when the Muslims who were coming down from Egypt, the Turco Egyptians, got to the Buganda court, they disagreed on the manner in which Islam was being practiced. I think one of their problems was that the mosque built was not facing Mecca as Islam tradition demands. So Kabaka Mutesa began getting friction within his kingdom, and when he died, his son took over. But Kabaka Mutesa had already, actually he had some of his subjects executed also in Namugongo. These are the first Ugandan martyrs. They were of Muslim faith, but they are not recognized. So when his son Mwanga took over power in around 1884, he was very uncomfortable. Already there was a bit of discomfort in the kingdom. And for him, his father had invited the European missionaries. In 1877, we had the Anglicans coming into Uganda. 1879, the Catholics who were from France came in. So there was a bit of confusion. We have the Muslims, we have the Anglicans now, or Protestants, and then we have the Muslims and the traditionalists who still believed in the traditional faiths that existed at that time. So now it was total confusion for Mwanga, who was only 19 years old. So taking on a kingdom, and you have all these factions. People, you give this order, they go back, they have to check it out with their, maybe what we would call their teachers of the faith. This was very confusing for Mwanga, and he gave an order, just like any other king. We either you follow my commands or you get executed. So according to history, actually it was treasonable to refuse to obey the rules or to obey the instructions of a king of Buganda. And if we go back to our own African analysis of issues, then in that case, as historians, we would say the king executed the Uganda Martyrs, the people who came to be known as the Ugandan Martyrs, for a just cause. It was treason. But when we got to the faith, it was they died for their faith because they refused to renounce what they had been taught. Some of the things the Kabaka wanted, the pages, because these were people working in his kingdom, they were his confidants. Some of them were personal advisors to the king, those who were executed. But now they were like, we will not do that. Yes, you are our king, but there is also a king of kings. And that is what made Mwanga very mad. To imagine that there is another king of kings ruling above him. So when the Uganda Martyrs, of course, the case was, they were tried and the sentence passed, which was death. This news went back to Britain. The missionaries, of course, were powerless in the kingdom, so they called upon their home countries. The British called upon their Britain, that is the Protestant missionaries, and then the Catholic missionaries called upon France. So in that case, what we see as historians, immediately the British decided they needed to protect the Christian convents. And so they needed to declare protection over Uganda. And that's how we go and see the Uganda Protectorate. But in actual fact, the scramble for Africa had started. The Europeans were rushing to grab any land within Africa. So the justification was there. They needed to protect the Christian converts in Uganda who were being hunted down by an African king. And of course, when they killed the Uganda Martyrs, they didn't kill all the converts. There were also other converts who went into hiding. So the Catholic converts, the Anglican converts, and the Muslims now ganged up against the king. So they were not now, Buganda was disintegrating. It was now politics at play. So as we go on, we see the 94 declaration of a protectorate over Buganda. The king, Kabaka Mwanga, is removed. His young son is put on as a king, Daudi Chwa, Kabaka Daudi Chwa. And eventually, we have the 1900 agreement where the king loses literally all his powers. Buganda then becomes a political, the Kabaka's authority now got to be under the British, under the Queen of England. Many people still wonder, well, why is it that only men were declared martyrs? Were there no women converts or women who had decided to embrace Christianity? The fact is, in all stories, me being a woman activist personally, in all stories, usually it is the women who are the majority, because women were present. Women were Christian converts, because women were there as wives, as sisters, as daughters, and also as mothers. So, what happened in the execution of the Uganda Martyrs? These were young men working very closely to the king of Buganda, the Kabaka. And that is why those are the ones that were executed, those who were in the court of the Buganda Kingdom. But actually women had been converted, because the missionaries were not supposed to be educating only men. So there were women who had been converted, and possibly some were even killed, but not in Namugongo. So the martyrs we talk about are those who were executed, who were burnt in Namugongo. But those who were killed elsewhere in other parts around Uganda, those are not among those that got canonized and got recognized as the Ugandan Martyrs. Every June 3rd, we remember the Ugandan Martyrs. But we must also remember and try to understand what the killing of the Ugandan Martyrs meant for Uganda, what it meant for Buganda, and what it eventually meant for the whole of Africa. This was not just the burning of the Uganda Martyrs who died for their conscience, believing in what they had learned, but also as historians we know that the killing of the Ugandan Martyrs expedited the colonization of Buganda and later the colonization of the entire Uganda, because the same Christian converts that sided with the British became the same agents of the British that spread colonization to the rest of Uganda. So as we look at the faith the Ugandan Martyrs had, we should also look at the consequences that followed. We got indirect rule, we got the whole of Uganda colonized, and of course, according to the missionaries and according to the British and the French, what they will say is that they spread religion, they spread education, and they spread civilization. But that also meant that we lost our freedom. As Africans, our institutions were destroyed, that is the institutions of governance, and our social fabric was punctured. So The Uganda Martyrs story needs to be analyzed from both sides. Here at Tembuzi Culture Fun Park, we unpack our stories and tell them from an African perspective, told by an African voice. And we call upon anyone out there with their story about the Ugandan Martyrs to come out and tell it to us. We want these stories put together. We want these stories stored and archived so that the future generations are able to get the full story from the people that have experienced it, from the people that have lived with this story.